He stared at me through the rearview mirror, a sinister smile curling on his lips. I tried to open the door, but it was locked. The car sped up and my heart raced. I knew I was in trouble. "Where are you taking me?" I shouted, but his smile only widened as we turned onto a deserted road. It was a typical Friday night, and I had just finished my shift at the local diner. Exhausted, I drove home, eager to unwind before heading out with friends later that evening. The drive was uneventful, and I relished the familiar comfort of my car and the soothing music from the radio. After a quick shower and change of clothes, I was ready for the night. I picked up my friends and we drove downtown, excited to check out a new bar. The night was filled with laughter, drinks, and dancing, everything I needed to forget the stress of the week. As the night wound down, I dropped off my friends one by one before heading back home. It was late and the streets were quiet. Suddenly, I heard a loud pop and felt my car lurch to one side. I pulled over to the side of the road and got out to inspect the damage. My heart sank when I saw the flat tire. I didn't have a spare, and I was in the middle of nowhere with no nearby gas stations. Frustrated and a little anxious, I called for an Uber, hoping to get home safely and deal with the car in the morning. The Uber arrived quickly. I slid into the back seat and barely glanced at the driver. As soon as I closed the door, I heard the distinct click of the locks engaging. He was an average-looking guy, probably in his mid-30s, wearing a baseball cap that casted a shadow over his eyes. "Good evening," he said with a friendly tone. I mumbled a reply, too tired and frustrated to pay attention. The car started moving and I leaned back, scrolling through my phone. For a moment, I wondered about the quick locking of the doors, but brushed it off as just a security measure. After a few minutes, I noticed we were taking an unusual route. "Hey, this isn't the way to my house," I said. Sitting up straight, the driver didn't respond, just kept driving. I pulled out my phone to check the route, but there was no signal. My anxiety spiked, and I tried to make small talk to assess the situation. "So how long have you been driving for Uber?" He glanced at me through the rearview mirror, eyes cold and unfeeling. "Long enough," he replied. We drove deeper into the unfamiliar part of town, and I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "Listen, I need to get home. Can you please turn around?" My voice wavered as panic set in. I tried the door handle, but it wouldn't budge. At that moment, his friendly facade dropped completely, his face contorted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he snarled, his voice filled with menace. Fear gripped me. "Please just let me out," I begged, my voice trembling. He ignored me, turning onto a deserted road. Trees lined the path, their branches casting eerie shadows under the dim streetlights. I could feel my pulse in my ears, my mind racing for a way out. Desperation took over. I lunged forward, trying to grab the steering wheel. The car swerved violently, but he was strong and pushed me back with ease. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be," he growled, his eyes flashing with anger. I remembered the small window breaker tool I always kept in my bag for emergencies. Frantically, I fumbled for it, my hands shaking. The driver noticed and reached back to grab me, but I swung the tool at the window with all my might. The glass shattered, and I didn't hesitate. I reached through the window, grasping for the outside door handle. With a swift tug, I managed to open the door and threw myself out, feeling the jagged edges cut into my skin as I landed hard on the gravel road. I looked up just in time to see the driver lose control of the car. The vehicle veered wildly before crashing into a concrete wall with a deafening impact. Smoke and steam bellowed from the wreckage. Ignoring the pain, I scrambled to my feet and ran into the woods, adrenaline fueling my escape. The driver's angry shouts and the sound of the crash faded into the distance as I put as much distance between us as possible. As I stumbled through the darkness, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see the driver limping towards me, a desperate look on his face. "Wait!" he called out, his voice tinged with fear. "You don't understand." I didn't wait to hear more. I kept running, but soon I heard more voices, two of them, deeper and more menacing. I slowed down and hid behind a tree, peeking out to see the driver being approached by two figures. They were large, menacing, and armed. "You brought someone here, didn't you?" One of them growled, grabbing the driver by the collar. "I didn't mean to," the driver said, his bravado completely gone. "It was supposed to be a quick job." "Now you got us a witness," the other figure snarled. "This changes everything." My mind raced as I realized the driver was no longer in control. These two were the real danger. I watched as they forced the driver to the ground, binding his hands with rough rope. Quietly, I crept away, hoping to put as much distance as possible between me and the three men. I knew I had to get help, but first I had to survive. As I took a step back, I felt something cold and rigid under my foot. I looked down and nearly screamed. A dead body lay hidden in the underbrush, eyes staring lifeless up at me. I clamped my hand over my mouth, my breath coming in ragged, terrified heaves. The last thing I needed was to attract attention. After what felt like hours of running, I stumbled upon a small, isolated gas station. I burst through the door, panting and blooded. The clerk's eyes widened in shock as I recounted my ordeal. The police arrived quickly, and I led them back to the spot where I had left the driver and the two men. By the time we got there, the driver was gone, but signs of struggle remained. They searched the area but found no trace of the driver or the two men. The officers took my statement and assured me they will continue the investigation. Every time I get into a car now, I can't help but feel a wave of dread wash over me. That night changed everything. It was supposed to be a simple ride home, but it turned into a nightmare I'll never forget. The image of the driver being dragged away by those men haunts me, a chilling reminder of how quickly things can go wrong. And the memory of the dead body, cold and lifeless in the woods, is something that will haunt my dreams forever.